What's going on, beautiful people? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, for listening to my rants and rambles. I appreciate your appreciation of my videos. We're gonna talk about spiritual ego here, right? Now, a lot of you guys watching these videos are into consciousness, spirituality. And spirituality is just a glorified term for non-physical, anything that's not physical. But really, like, spirituality is you and me and everything. Everything is non-physical. Even the fucking physical is not physical. You think this is physical, bro? Yes, it might look like it's physical, and I'm touching it and I'm convinced, but quantum physics is showing us that at the quantum level, at the very basic root of reality, atoms are there and not there, and they're vibrating. Everything is vibrating, everything is moving, everything is in motion. And simulation theory, which, you know, you got guys like Elon Musk practically preaching that shit. He's convinced of it, which points to this reality being a simulation that is made up of code. And it just appears to our nervous system as physical. So even that is like, even when you realize that that everything is spiritual, like everything is. Anyway, spiritual ego is when you take the red pill and you wake up to your true nature, and you wake up to your higher self and your true self, your loving awareness, the awareness beneath you. And then you realize that most people are asleep, and then you say, oh, it's us and them now. So it's us, people who are awake, and them motherfuckers who are sleeping. Them idiots. You guys have probably heard me several times in my videos calling other people idiots, right? The sleeping ones. And you probably will hear me say it over and over. This is an example of spiritual ego. This is an example of... I love these videos because they expose me. This is an example, and it's funny because I'm going to keep doing it. This is an example of spiritual ego. This is an example of separation. Ego is separation, right? Ego is I am separate from you. So I am the awakened one. I am Neo, and you are the sleeping one. And yeah, that's going to happen. The ego has a very tricky way of controlling you. It has a very tricky way of asserting its dominance on you. And just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Godfather 3, Al Pacino. So, yeah, it has this funny way of pulling you back in, of coming back and saying, hey, look at you, you're better than everyone else. You're smart, and you know about the world, and you're awake to all the suffering in the world and all the misery in the world, and look at you, you're compassionate, and you're loving, and you're caring, and you want to change the world, and you know, you try your best, and you're this good person, you're this awake person, etc., etc. And that's creating separation between you and other. That's what ego is. Ego is always creating separation. It's always trying to separate you somehow from other people, separating you from everything else around you. Now, just to go on, the ego, there's a, you know, when we hear the term ego, we think bad, right? The ego consists of two parts. You have the physical body, and then you have the psychological, what you tell yourself. The ego is just your character. Think of life as a video game. This is the character you're in. You want to pick a character, so you got to pick an ego. An ego has a story. It has a physical body, right? You need ego, and you need to love your ego if you want to be successful in the material world. You see, you need to love it, you need to use it. Why else are you here? You're here. You choose an ego to be here. You choose a character to be here. The problem is when the character thinks it's the center of the universe, and when it has an inflated sense of, when it becomes inflated, when it thinks, look at me, I'm better than everyone else, that's when it becomes problematic. You know, that's when the ego essentially gets out of control. Instead of it being just in the backseat, chilling, smoking a joint, eating some mushrooms, then it becomes the driver of the car. It becomes the driver of your experience. And anytime you think you're better than someone else, that's when your ego is out of control. When you so here's the difference. The difference is if you look at yourself and say, oh my God, I think you're beautiful. And you're just maybe looking at your physical appearance like I do. I like the way I look. And I always tell myself, you're beautiful. Now, this is very superficial, very egotistical, like, you know what I mean? But I don't think that's out of line. I think what's out of line is I am more beautiful than this guy, or I'm more beautiful than this girl, or I am more beautiful than people. That's when the ego gets out of control, in my opinion, is when it starts to compare. But as long as you're making a statement that it's not going outside of yourself, like, oh, hey, I think you look beautiful, you look sexy, then that's ego. Absolutely, you got that right. You're looking at your character, admiring its physical appearance, right? And it's very superficial. But I don't think that's out of control. I think this is a creation of God, the creation of the programmer, and there's nothing wrong with appreciating its appearance, its physical beauty. It's another thing to look at yourself and say, oh, you're a really caring person. You know, you give yourself some, you know, you say, oh, I love that you're caring. And another thing to say, you know, you're more caring than all these idiots. You know, you're smarter than the other idiots. It's one thing to look at yourself and say, you're smart. And another thing to say, you're smarter than all these idiots. Then there's ego, and there's ego out of control. You can't escape the ego. You can't escape the ego. Unless you go and become one of those monks in Tibet. And that's kind of fucking boring. You know, that's boring. You know, give me the drama of life. Give me the ups and downs. Give me the drama of life, baby. I want to experience this. I want to experience the ups and downs. I want to expose the fragility of this thing that I'm in, this ego thing, these stories that I tell myself, right? So, but also to sort of ignore that there are certain people that are asleep and certain people that are trying to change the world, that is also kind of not objective. So what is the solution here? How do you fucking escape this illusion of separation while still being you know, and still sort of operating from this ego space, but putting your ego in its place, in the back seat, give it some mushrooms to eat, give it a joint to smoke, as opposed to it having to drive the car. I think the best way to do that is to stop calling other people idiots like I do. But at least I call myself an idiot too, right? So I get a little bit of break. Is to stop comparing yourself with other people, I think. I think to escape the problem of spiritual ego is to not say I'm smarter than others. It's not to say I'm better than others. It's not to say I'm more woke than others. Because now you're creating separation. Now you're straining away from the Christ consciousness. And I think ultimately we want to get to the Christ consciousness, which is oneness, unity, love, compassion. Compassion, right? Compassion for those who are suffering. Because you know the people who are asleep are suffering. And maybe perhaps you don't want them to suffer. And so even that spiritual ego could be like sort of perverted. Because like deep down you care about them. And you don't want them to suffer. You don't want your fellow brothers and sisters, your fellow beings, to suffer. And the last thing you want to do is to say I'm better than them, or the last thing you want to do is to say they're idiots, or the last thing you want to do is to say, you know, like us and them. It's us, spiritual people, awake people, the awakened ones, psychonauts, people who want to change the world, and it's another thing to say them, you know, morons. Well, that's a little short-sighted, because I can tell you something about myself. I was sleeping. I was fucking sleeping. I was another cog in the machine. I was another person wired to the matrix. no difference than anybody else. Absolutely. I wasn't one of those people that thought about this shit from ages. I only started thinking about this when I started turning 21, 22. Before that, I'm no different. I wasn't that one of those people that like was just super genius. Like at 14-year-old realized, holy shit, like the world's fucked. I was not one of those. So when I call other people idiots, or look at the people in the Matrix and say, oh, you're sleeping, you're this, you're that, I'm better than you. Guess what? I'm fucking judging myself because I used to be that person. And who's to say some of these people won't start to wake up? So by judging them, by calling yourself better than them, you're not honoring where they are in their journey in life, and you're not even honoring where you were in the first place, right? Like you're not looking at their circumstances and saying, oh, maybe that's why they're sleeping. They really bad circumstances, or oh man, like they've only been incarnating on Earth for like recently, so yeah, they got a lot of learning to do. Maybe they have like a lot of learning to do still. That's where compassion, Christ consciousness comes in and says, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, sure, okay. Yes, some people are plugged into the Matrix, and you can see it. Like, come on, you can't deny it. And you see it on their face. They're miserable. Sleep deprived, fucking caffeinated, sugared, and sick and tired, and all of it. You see it. It's there in front of you. And you see the suffering, you see the pain. But you can be like, oh, I'm better than this person, I know more than them. Or you can say, oh, it is what it is. And then you kind of be like, hey, have a conversation with them. Maybe it can be talking about the weather and shit. And just sort of embrace them for being, for just being, right? Embrace them as your fellow being and have compassion for them and have love for them. And here's the thing. For me personally, speaking of me personally, working in this coffee shop that I do it twice a week. I won't be doing it for too long. It helped me with this, to be honest. It really did. Because I think I was on a high horse before. I'm still on a high horse. But I think I was on a higher horse before. And I hadn't really stopped intermingling and interacting with people from the Matrix. And sort of lived in my own bliss. But in that process, I definitely had an inflated sense of the enlightened one, the one that knows, right? And I think working there helped me get down a little bit, and just appreciate people for people, because a lot of these people, man, I'll tell you what, the people that are in the Matrix, they are fucking amazing people, amazing souls. Oh my God. I've made a lot of friends having this part-time job. A lot of friends. And we have is none of these talks. None of it. Like, it's just about mundane shit, boring shit. But we sort of recognize that loving awareness recognizes the loving awareness. And so even when we're talking about boring shit, it's like there's that spirit of love there. There's that spirit of being, that spirit of unity. And yeah, I think the best thing to do, man, the best thing to do in this case, for all of us watching this and making this video, is to keep working on your vision for the world, improving your vision, improving yourself, without belittling other people. As simple as that. See things objectively, meaning, yes, there are certain people that are suffering and miserable and plugged into this economic matrix, into this consensus reality, and there are certain people that are seeing things for what they are and trying to build something new. You see the objective truth. This is objective. It's in your face. You can't ignore it. Otherwise, the world wouldn't be in the mess that it is in right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many depressed people, so many anxious people, so many people on pills and antidepressants. Proof is in the pudding. Then you get people who are sort of, to the best of their abilities, unplugged. Me being one of them. Like, I'm a very healthy person. I'm a very vibrant person. A very energetic person. I know wherever I go, people feel my energy. I don't take pills. I don't fucking take anything. Like, it's I just try and live naturally, try and be good to myself. So the objective truth is it's in your eyes. You can't ignore it. But I think, it's just like Morpheus tells Neo, right? He's like, these people are the people we're trying to save. But until we save them, they're part of the problem or whatever. But you want to save these people. We ultimately want to save these people. We don't want them to suffer because they are us and we are them. And it's the same loving awareness, experiencing itself subjectively. They are divine. They are God. They are beautiful, every single one of them. And they just don't know it. They just don't know it, right? And these are the people we want to save, right? So how can we belittle them? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me to belittle them. And you know what? Some of these people, yes, they may be completely asleep, but they are doing some fucking great things. Like, they're taking care of their grandchildren, they're taking care of their children, they have families. Some of these people are police officers and they have to put their life on the line every day. So they're still, like, you know what I mean? In their own way, they're still doing the best they can, I guess, right? So this is an invitation to myself because, I do go on in these videos creating that separation sometimes, but it's good to catch myself. This is an invitation to me, to you guys, not to belittle other people, no matter what walk of life they come from, no matter how asleep they are, no matter how unconscious they are, no matter how miserable. And definitely they're miserable. It's like, if you choose to be sleeping, yeah, you're gonna live those circumstances by living a miserable life, right? Right there and then is punishment enough. And that requires compassion, if anything. And in fact, like I said, we do want to alleviate the suffering of all beings. We do want to alleviate the suffering of the world. And we can't belittle others because we belittle ourselves, because that's all of us. We're one. That's the truth. The truth is oneness. The truth is we're all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And if you don't think that's the truth, 5 grams of mushrooms in silent darkness will show you that. Will absolutely show you that. Okay? And yeah, that's it, man. I think we're all one. Try and bring this Christ consciousness together, not belittle others. Understand your ego, understand its purpose, understand that you need it, and gratify it from time to time. Gratify it in whichever way. But the minute it gets out of control is the minute you start to compare it and you start to feel superior to others. So that is a talk for all of us, me included. Hopefully it helps us all to continue this path of improving ourselves, improving the world around us, creating this new society based on love, unity, oneness, Christ consciousness, and health, strength, happiness, right? As always, that's it. God bless you all, guys. Love every single one of you. As always, though, don't forget to subscribe or you're gonna sleep with the fishes.